Sure. Why are there so many Bible translations? We'll start with that. Uh, um, I can tell you there are some cynical answers to that because people want to make money. There are cynical answers to that, but really the truth is we do need new Bible translations over time because what happens is that words change meaning over time. I mean, as we continue to move along as a culture, there are constantly new words that are being added to the dictionary, and words change meaning over time. In connection to the earlier question about the end times, I always found it funny because you had the uh, question of okay, when does the Antichrist come? When the restrainer stops restraining. Well, that's actually more of a modern translation. In the King James, if I'm not mistaken, it says, "He who letteth shall let." Well, what does the word let mean? Typically, we interpret the word let to mean allow. I let you do something means I allow you to do something. Uh, and even as I said that, letteth doesn't necessarily sound like the word let. So already you have to do some interpretation, from this older word to this newer word. But that's actually the opposite meaning of what it meant when it was translated and what it means. To let back then meant to restrain. That's what it meant in 1611. That's what it meant in the 17th century. It meant to restrain. And so the word has flip flopped. The word has completely changed meaning over time. There are some 400 words in the King James Version that are not in use in English today. And as you read them, you would not know what they meant. You would have to look them up and find out what they meant. When you have words that have changed meaning and you have words that are archaic and don't have meaning anymore in the English language, you need a new English translation. Now, of course, there are some who say, no, we just have to stick with the King James, we just have to better ourselves. What is the use of a translation if you need a translation for the translation? You need a newer translation. And that's why you do sometimes need those new translations. And so some have said, okay, well, New King James, and that's fine. But even from the time of the New King James to today, words have changed meaning. And we have to recognize that. Plus, there is also another aspect to this. We have continued to discover manuscripts, and we have continued to make discoveries that do alter some of the ways that we would translate some of the verses. So, with some manuscript evidence, we may have translated it one way, and with other evidence, now we translate it slightly differently. That's not to say anything has changed meaning, but we want the translation to be as accurate as possible. We also have different translation theories. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, some translations want to be as literal as possible. Uh, and so if the Greek words say this, that's exactly what the English words should say. The problem is, and brother, you would understand this very well because you speak two languages. Sometimes things don't translate well from one language to another. And you have to think, okay, I can't say it like that in that language. I have to I have to say it a different way in that language. And so some translations want to be very wooden. Some translations want to be a little bit more thought by thought, let's say. And so the ones that are more wooden, actually, that would be more like the Young's Living or the Young's literal translation. That would be on one side. Then you have some translations that try to kind of strike that balance, uh, and they are formal equivalents, which is they don't try to do it in the same word order, uh, but they try to keep it very close to the original. And that would be a good example. That would be the New American Standard Bible, um, or the Legacy Standard Bible that just recently came out from MacArthur's church out there. Those would be more formal equivalent translations. Then you have the thought for thought or dynamic equivalency translations. That would be the NIV. The NIV, I think, has become the most popular English translation in the world over time because it's so readable. It's a lot more readable than the New American Standard. I'm willing to admit that. Sometimes the New American Standard can be a little stilted. Um, I think the Legacy Standard Bible smooths some of that out, but because of the dedication to being very formal and very literal, sometimes the language can be very stilted and not read well in English. The NIV reads a little bit better in English. However, it doesn't always give you that literal reading. And so a lot of people would say, okay, let's not trust that. Then, if we go even further to the side of the spectrum, you have something called a paraphrase. A paraphrase is where it's not really a translation. It's someone who sat down, maybe they did do a little bit of Greek and Hebrew work, but basically they're sitting down with an English Bible and they're saying, okay, how can I rewrite that in a way that's more understandable, uh, maybe for kids? And that's where the message, I think, came from. It was originally a translation for kids. It's not really a translation, it's a paraphrase of what was in the text. Um, the Passion translation, I would say, stay away from that one. That's another example of being a paraphrase. So that, in short, those are some reasons why we have so many different translations. One, we have a need every couple of generations for a new translation so that the language is as accurate as possible and it reflects the textual evidence as well as possible. And also, you have differing thoughts of how you should translate because there are people who disagree. Some people think it should be more closely, you should stick more closely to the original Greek and Hebrew. Then there are some who say we just need thoughts of the Greek and the Hebrew. And then there are some who say we just need the basic idea. And so those are why you have those different translations. And are there some people who just want to make money? Yeah, that's part of it too. Perhaps that's an aspect of it as well. We can't deny that money does play a factor, especially as different publishing houses do sometimes charge for citing their books in some works, or citing some of their translations in some works. And so there is that consideration as well. Um, why did MacArthur come out with his? Because the New American Standard, as I said, every couple of generations we need a new one. Well, the New American Standard originally came out in 1977, if I'm not mistaken, was the first edition, and then it had its update in 1995, which doesn't feel that long ago to me, but it was a long time ago, and language has changed since then. And so they wanted to have their 2020 update. And I think it actually ended up being a 2022 update. The update for the New American Standard, it was disappointing in some areas. Not all areas, but it was disappointing in some areas. And we kind of knew that moving into it. They were going to make some choices that moved away from the reasons why we liked the NASB. I'll just call it the NASB. It moved away from reasons why we liked the NASB. And so what the Master's Seminary faculty did and the Master's University faculty did was they said, let's create a legacy edition of the NASB. This will hold the NASB up as the translation that we all remember it to be, while still making some minor adjustments for modern language, correcting a couple of the comma splices and different things that they inserted into the text erroneously. We'll smooth out some of the rough edges, but we'll keep the basic thing intact. And that was originally the idea. Of course, as they moved into it, they said, well, we can make a few more changes than what we were originally thinking. But the legacy edition, the legacy standard Bible, was meant to be a kind of a remembrance for the NASB, but a way to preserve it for the next few generations. That was the idea behind it. And I think they did a great job.